Welcome back to Heavy Metal Diorama. Tonight we're going to do some detail painting with Vallejo Air acrylics. This is a Masterson's Stay Wet Handy palette. It keeps the paint wet, has a sponge underneath, and the paper on top has also been soaked in water and drained off a bit. This Vallejo Air acrylic is pretty thin. It flows really well. I find it's great for brush painting. It's great for doing road wheels, which you need that sort of capillary action. This brush is an older brush and it's been kind of bent, and it works great for hard to reach places. And above all this, you really need some kind of magnifying glass. These are great. It has a LED light on it and it really helps to get these details. As you can see, this is a very tedious job, but the Vallejo Air acrylic is so thin and flows so nice that it just kind of flows right in there. And if you had a thicker paint, it wouldn't do this. I've learned over the years how to control paint by doing fine art paintings, and I've learned a lot what works and what doesn't. I prefer thinner paint with a little more flow to it, and I believe the Vallejo Air acrylics have a bit of flow improver in them, and this is probably why they work so well for this. So I use this for detail painting and find it to be really the best way to go, which is nice too, because I do a lot of airbrushing, so I really don't have to bother buying regular Vallejo acrylics. I probably wouldn't use them. The thing about these is that they are a bit more transparent because they're thinner. So you do have to kind of work with that. But since everything's been painted, primed, and it really doesn't really take much to cover. Sometimes I'll do 2 coats if it looks a little bit more like a transparent wash. But I use a lot. I load the brush and just let it flow into the cracks. What I'm doing here is pre-painting the areas where the baggage stowage would be, the straps that hold them down. Here's some spare track, and again you can see how thick I'm putting this on there, almost like a wash, and it's thin that it'll flow and it'll level, and it just makes things easier when you're using something with a bit more flow. I don't really know if many of you have tried using the Vallejo Air acrylics for brush painting, but I just started trying it out and I think it works a lot better. It's all about the angle too. You've got to approach things at the right angle. And with this little brush that has that kind of curved tip to it, which is a total accident, and working at this angle works really well, because otherwise, if you don't get the right angle on it, you're going to end up putting paint on the places you don't want. So the music is J.C. Dwyer on drums and me on guitar and bass. This is a cover of the Van Halen song Little Dreamer, but it was JC's idea to do it a little more like almost like a surfy kind of country style. So please enjoy. Here you see I grabbed some paint, but I wipe it off a little bit because I didn't want a real loaded brush for this tiny little axe. You tend to learn what kind of areas you need to load the brush when it's a bigger, more detailed spot. like those spare track links. You want to be able to flow them in there like a wash, but with this, you've got a really small object. And here's some stuff I did previously. This is all done with the same paint, and it really flows well into those spots. And now with those parts dry, I'm going to go with Model Air wood, and I'm going to paint the wooden handles of the tools. And I do find that doing this stuff when they're attached is a lot easier, because then you don't run the risk of getting glue where you don't want it. And when you do the actual black primer, it helps to hide some of the areas, blend them in better, gives the shadow. So you're painting the upper areas, and the recessed areas are still black primer. That's why the black primer works so well. And I try not to spray my main coat of paint, like in this case a dark yellow. I try to keep it away from those spots so that you still have that black or dark area in between there. Please excuse my giant head there in the shot, but this is some really detailed stuff. I needed to get really close up, so with my magnifying glasses. And again, this Model Air's paint is a little thinner, and it works really well when you're painting it to these wood effects, because you get a natural sort of uneven finish, which I think looks more like realistic wood than if it was just like a solid color. And now with all the wood parts painted, you still see that it's called a black gray, and as my base coat for the metal parts, I'm going to add some metallic paint over that when that's all dry, which will give it a nice metallic look, and then a little bit of rust effects too. So stay tuned, please like and subscribe, and see you next time.